The bus door hissed open, and Lily Parker stepped down into air that smelled like diesel and cut grass, her duffel bag dragging one shoulder lower than the other. It weighed almost as much as she did, or felt like it. She adjusted her grip and fell into the loose, uncertain line forming near the reception building, trying to copy the posture of the recruit in front of her. Spine straight, chin level, eyes forward. Like she could borrow confidence just by standing the right way. She couldn't stop her hands from shaking a little. Not from fear exactly. From the sheer size of what she'd just done. 21 years old, 5'4", average in almost every measurable way. That was how Lily would have described herself if anyone had asked. Nobody had, not really. Not in a way that mattered. She'd spent her whole life being described by other people. Reliable, sweet, the quiet one. Never the strong one, never the one anyone worried about, never the one anyone expected much from at all. She wanted to know what she was, on her own, without anyone else's opinion attached to it. That question got a lot harder to answer 3 days later, standing on a painted line on a cracked asphalt PT field at 05:30, waiting for the diagnostic fitness test to begin. Drill Sergeant Reyes walked the line slowly before it started, hands clasped behind her back, saying nothing yet. She was compact, weathered in the way that came from years outside rather than age, and she had a way of looking at a recruit that made you feel like she'd already finished her assessment of you before you'd done anything at all. "This is a baseline," Reyes said finally, her voice carrying without being raised. "It tells me where you are. It does not tell me where you'll end up. Some of you will hear that as an excuse. Don't." The push-ups went fine. The sit-ups went fine. It was the run that broke Lily open in front of everyone. She'd trained for this. She really had. 3 months of jogging around her apartment complex before she shipped out, feeling proud of herself for sticking with it. But 3 months of solo jogging hadn't prepared her for pace groups, for the sound of 40 other people's boots hitting pavement faster than hers, for the particular humiliation of watching backs get smaller ahead of her one at a time until she was running mostly alone, near the back, lungs burning, legs heavy as sandbags. She finished. She didn't quit. And some small, stubborn part of her held on to that. But she finished 23rd out of 26, and everyone had seen it. "You're slow," said a voice beside her afterward. Not unkind exactly, just flat and observational. The way you'd point out weather. That was Dawson. Recruit Dawson, tall, sharp-shouldered, the kind of runner who made it look like the ground owed her speed. She wasn't smirking. That almost made it worse. "You need to fix that before land nav or the course." "I know," Lily said, because there wasn't anything else true to say. Dawson looked at her another second, like she was deciding whether Lily was worth more words, then jogged off toward the water point without giving an answer either way. The only person who fell in step beside Lily afterward was Torres, a recruit built more like a question mark than a soldier, elbows and knees at odd angles, who'd finished 2 spots behind Lily and seemed almost cheerful about it. "Congratulations," Torres said. "We're not last. That's not really a bar to clear. It's the only one I'm clearing today, so I'm taking it." Torres grinned, and despite everything, Lily almost smiled back. The real test came that afternoon, at the rope. It hung from a steel frame, 20 feet of thick fiber that had already claimed the dignity of half the platoon before Lily's turn came around. She grabbed on, planted her boots against the pole the way she'd been shown, and pulled. She got maybe 6 feet up. Her arms gave out somewhere past that, shaking, and her boots scrabbled uselessly against the pole as she slid back down, rope burning through her palms, even through her gloves. She hit the ground harder than she meant to, breath knocked sideways, and had to sit there a second before she trusted her legs to hold her. Nobody laughed. That was somehow worse than if they had. The platoon had simply already stopped expecting anything different. Reyes crossed over, not hurrying, and looked down at Lily for a long moment. "Parker, drill sergeant, you know why you fell?" Lily's face was hot. "Because I'm weak." "No." Reyes said it plainly, without softening it into comfort. Because you stopped trying to climb the second your arms told you it was hard. That's not the same thing as weak. But you're going to need to figure out the difference, and soon, because out here, that's going to keep happening. The only question is what you do the next time it does. She walked off before Lily could answer. That night, lying in her bunk listening to the unfamiliar chorus of 30 other people breathing in the dark, Lily turned the sentence over and over, unable to set it down. What you do the next time it does. She didn't have an answer yet. She wasn't sure she liked that she didn't. The letter home almost didn't happen. Recruits got 15 minutes on a bank of phones near the day room, and Lily spent the first 5 of hers just standing there listening to her mother's voice, letting it wash over her before she said anything real. "You sound tired," her mother said. "I am tired." Lily leaned her forehead against the cool metal of the phone housing. "It's harder than I thought it would be. You could still, Mom, not sharp." Just firm enough to close the door on that sentence before it fully opened. "I'm not calling to be talked out of it." There was a pause on the line, the particular kind her mother did when she was recalibrating what she was allowed to say. "Okay, then tell me something true instead." So Lily did, in a way she hadn't quite let herself say out loud before. That she was tired of being the reliable one who nobody worried about because nobody thought there was anything in her worth worrying about. That her whole life, people had handed her a description of herself. Sweet, quiet, easy. And she'd worn it because it was easier than arguing. That she didn't enlist because of some tragedy or some grand patriotic moment. She enlisted because she wanted, for once, to find out what she was capable of without her sister's shadow or her father's low expectations sitting in front of the answer. "I'm not good at this yet," Lily said. "I fell off a rope today in front of my whole platoon." "Did you get back up?" "Eventually." "Then you're further along than the version of you that called me in March," her mother said, and Lily had to blink hard and change the subject before her voice betrayed her in front of the recruit waiting behind her for the phone. The days that followed had a punishing rhythm to them. PT before dawn, classes, drills, meals eaten too fast to taste, lights out arriving like mercy. Lily's body began, slowly, to answer differently. Push-ups came a little easier. The run times crept down, not dramatically, but enough that she wasn't finishing dead last anymore, just solidly unremarkable, which felt, strangely, like a kind of victory she hadn't expected to savor. Her confidence didn't move at the same pace as her body. That was the part nobody warned her about. That getting physically stronger didn't automatically quiet the voice that still expected her to fail. Dawson noticed the improvement and, in her own blunt way, acknowledged it. "You're not as slow," she said one morning, falling in step beside Lily during a cool-down walk, the closest thing to a compliment she seemed capable of offering. "Thanks, I think." "I'm not being nice. I'm being accurate." Dawson glanced sideways at her. "Out here, accurate matters more than nice. If you're weak in the field, it's not just you who pays for it. That's why I push. Not because I think you're pathetic. Because I've seen what happens when someone isn't ready and everyone around them has to carry that." It wasn't warmth, exactly, but it wasn't cruelty either, and Lily filed it away as something to think about later, when she had the emotional bandwidth to examine it. The announcement came during evening formation, and it landed on the platoon like a change in barometric pressure. Everyone straightening slightly, that particular quiet that meant something real was coming. "Next week," Reyes said. "Land navigation, day course individually, night course in buddy teams. This is graded, and it matters. Not because of the score, but because Land Nav teaches you something PT can't. It teaches you whether you can think clearly when you're tired, cold, and alone, and whether you can trust the person next to you when the plan stops working the way it did on paper." She read off partner assignments for the night course from a clipboard, names paired without ceremony, no explanation given for the logic behind any of it. "Dawson, Parker." Lily felt the name land somewhere between her ribs. Beside her, she saw Dawson's jaw tighten almost imperceptibly. Not disgust, but something closer to recalculation, like she was already running the numbers on what this would cost her. Torres, 2 people down the line, mouthed good luck at her with an expression that wasn't entirely reassuring. Neither Lily nor Dawson said anything to each other for the rest of formation. But that night, lying in her bunk, Lily found herself thinking less about the rope, less about her run time, and more about the particular discomfort of being tied, literally for one long night in unfamiliar terrain, to the one person in the platoon who'd already decided exactly how much Lily was worth. She didn't know yet that the terrain wasn't going to be the hardest part of what was coming. Neither of them did. The week before, land navigation moved fast in the way exhausting things do. Too much to learn. Not enough time to feel ready to learn it. Compass work. Pace counts measured out on a gravel track, over and over, until Lily could tell within a few meters how far she'd walked just by counting her own steps. Terrain association. Protractors and grid coordinates that had looked like nonsense on the first day and slowly, grudgingly, started to make sense. She and Dawson were assigned 2 practice sessions together before the graded night course, and the first one was stiff and businesslike, both of them speaking only about azimuths and distances, nothing personal crossing between them. But something shifted during the second session, out on the training terrain with a practice map between them, when Dawson caught an error in Lily's plotting before it became a real mistake. "You're off by half a grid square," Dawson said, tapping the map. "Right here. If you'd walked that in the dark, you'd have ended up in the creek bottom instead of the checkpoint. How do you catch that so fast?" "Because I made that exact mistake during a training weekend before I enlisted. Cost me 2 hours and a twisted ankle finding my way back." Dawson said it without embarrassment, like offering up her own failure was just useful data. "You're careful, though. You checked your pace count twice before you trusted it. That's good." Most people trust the first number. It wasn't friendship, but it was the first time Dawson had spoken to her like a colleague instead of a liability, and Lily noticed the difference more than she expected to. The forecast for the night of the graded course called for clear skies with a chance of light rain after midnight. By the time buddy teams stepped off from the start point at 2100, the sky had already begun to disagree with that forecast, clouds moving low and fast overhead, blotting out what thin moonlight there might have been. "Stay tight on the azimuth," Dawson said as they entered the tree line, voice pitched low and businesslike. "We've got 4 points before the RP. If we lose time on the first one, we lose it on all of them." The first checkpoint came without much trouble, a reflective marker tied to a fence post, found within 10 minutes of where Lily's pace count said it should be, which gave her a small private surge of pride she didn't have time to enjoy. The second took longer, the terrain thicker than the map suggested, briars catching at their pant legs, flashlights kept low and red filtered so as not to ruin their night vision. The rain started as they were working toward the third point. Not the light drizzle promised. A real rain, cold and driving, turning the ground beneath them from firm to slick within 20 minutes. Visibility, already limited to the narrow cone of their flashlights, shrank further as the drops smeared across the compass glass and dripped off the brims of their patrol caps. "We need to slow down," Lily said, raising her voice over the rain. "We need to keep moving or we lose the window," Dawson snapped back. And for a moment, the old friction was there again, sharp-edged and impatient. They found the third point, soaked through, both of them shivering now under wet uniforms that had stopped doing much good against the cold. The fourth point required crossing a drainage ditch that had been a dry gully during the day practice, and was now running with runoff, rocks slick and half-submerged beneath moving water. Dawson went first, the way she went first at everything, testing her footing on a flat stone near the near bank before stepping across toward the far side. The stone rolled. It happened fast and ordinarily, the way real accidents do. No drama to it, just Dawson's boots skidding sideways on wet rock, her weight coming down wrong. A sharp cry cut short as she caught herself with her hands in the mud rather than falling fully into the water. But her leg had twisted beneath her on the way down, and when Lily got to her and helped her sit back from the ditch edge, Dawson's face had gone pale and tight in the red flashlight glow. "I'm fine," Dawson said, too fast, already trying to get her boot back under her. She got about halfway to standing before her, weight touched down on the ankle, and a sound came out of her that she clearly hadn't meant to let escape. Something between a gasp and a curse, raw enough that Lily flinched. "You're not fine. Sit down." "I don't have time to not be fine, Parker. We have a checkpoint. Sit down." It came out harder than Lily intended, and to her own surprise, Dawson actually obeyed it, lowering herself back onto the wet ground, breathing hard through clenched teeth. Lily got her boot off carefully, Dawson hissing the whole time, and found the ankle already swelling hard against the fabric of her sock, the joint sitting at an angle that didn't look right even by flashlight. Not broken, maybe, but there was no way Dawson was walking on it, certainly not fast, certainly not far. "I can't believe this," Dawson said, and her voice had changed entirely. Not the flat authority from the PT field, but something smaller, furious at her own body in a way Lily recognized immediately, because she'd spent weeks feeling exactly that same fury at herself. "I don't fall. This isn't supposed to happen to me. It happened. That's not the same as it meaning something about you." Lily heard herself say it and realized, distantly, that it was something she badly needed to believe about herself too. They had a radio, but the graded exercise kept comms minimal by design. Check-ins only at set windows, the next one nearly 40 minutes out, and the rain was already washing away whatever signal strength they might have had in open ground. Cadre wouldn't be actively looking for them yet. Nobody was coming, not soon, not unless Lily made something happen. She crouched there in the rain beside Dawson, map bag clutched against her chest to keep it dry, the weight of the decision settling onto her with a clarity that felt almost physical. Wait here, keep Dawson stable, and hope the next radio window brought help fast enough. Or move. Get them both toward the checkpoint using nothing but her own compass work and her own pace count. In the dark, in the rain, with an injured partner leaning on her the whole way, trusting a set of skills she'd only barely learned to trust in herself at all. Dawson was watching her, waiting. The authority between them fully reversed now, whether either of them wanted to admit it yet. "What do you want to do, Parker?" Dawson asked, and for the first time since they'd met, the question sounded like she actually meant it as a real question. Not a test, not a judgment. Just two recruits, soaked and cold, with no one else to decide for them. Lily looked down at the map bag in her hands, then back at Dawson's ankle, swelling visibly even in the dim red light. She made herself breathe out slowly before she answered, the way she'd started doing during PT when her lungs wanted to panic before her legs actually gave out. "We move," she said. "Waiting means we're betting on the radio window working in this weather, and even if it does, it's still faster for us to close distance ourselves than for a search team to find us from a general location. I know where we are. I know where the checkpoint is. I can get us there." "You know that, or you're hoping that?" "Both," Lily admitted, "but mostly the first one." Dawson studied her for a second. Really studied her, in a way she hadn't before, like she was recalculating something she'd already decided weeks ago and hadn't expected to have to reconsider. Then she nodded, once, and held out her arm. Getting Dawson up was its own small battle. Lily wrapped the ankle first, using the field dressing from her IFAK. Wound tight enough to give some stability without cutting off circulation. She'd half listened to that class during their first week of training, and was grateful now that half had apparently been enough. She fashioned a rough support out of a stripped branch and Dawson's own belt, and got her partner's arm slung across her shoulders, taking as much weight as she could without either of them going down into the mud. "This is going to be slow," Lily said. "I know. I mean really slow. I need you to tell me if you feel your foot going numb, or if the pain changes, because I can't see your face that well in this light, and I need to actually hear it from you." Dawson gave a short, surprised laugh, more breath than sound. "You're bossy when you're scared." "I'm terrified," Lily said honestly. "Doesn't mean I'm wrong." They moved. It was, exactly as promised, slow. A shuffling, three-legged rhythm through wet brush and uneven ground. Lily stopping every 50 meters to recheck her compass bearing under the flashlight, cupping her hand around the beam to keep the rain off the lens long enough to get a clean reading. Her pace count blurred sometimes under the strain of half-carrying another person, and she made herself stop and recount rather than guess, even when every part of her wanted to just keep walking and hope. "Talk to me," Lily said, somewhere past the halfway point, when Dawson had gone quiet in a way that worried her more than complaining would have. "Tell me something, anything. I need you awake and talking, not just enduring this." "Why?" "Because shock doesn't announce itself, and because I don't actually know what state you're in unless you tell me." Dawson was quiet a moment, boots dragging through mud, breath ragged with pain and cold. "I've got a brother," she said finally. 2 years older. Went into the Marines before me. Everybody in my family already had a soldier they were proud of before I signed anything. I think that's part of why I run so hard, why I push people. I didn't want to be the second version of somebody else's thing. "I get that," Lily said, and meant it more than Dawson probably realized. "I spent my whole life being the version of me other people already decided on. Reliable, quiet. Not much else expected." She adjusted her grip under Dawson's arm, checked the compass again, corrected 2 degrees west. "I didn't come here to prove I was strong. I came here because I wanted one thing in my life where nobody got to decide what I was capable of except me. And now you're carrying me through a rainstorm doing math in your head." "Now I'm carrying you through a rainstorm doing math in my head," Lily agreed. And something about saying it out loud, absurd and true at the same time, made her laugh despite the cold, despite her shaking arms, despite the very real fear sitting underneath all of it that she might still get the bearing wrong and walk them both further from where they needed to be. She didn't get it wrong. Not perfectly right either. Twice she had to stop, recheck a landmark against the map, adjust her heading by a few careful degrees rather than push forward on a guess. Each time, the old fear rose up fast and familiar. The same voice that had told her to let go of the rope the moment her arms started shaking. She didn't let go this time. She stood still in the rain, made herself trust the numbers instead of the panic, and corrected course. The checkpoint marker came into view almost an hour past when they should have reached it. Reflective tape catching Lily's flashlight beam through the trees, and she felt something in her chest loosen so suddenly it was almost dizzying. They weren't alone at the marker for long. The missed radio window had triggered exactly the response Lily had gambled they could beat. A search element already moving toward their last known checkpoint, headlights and flashlights cutting through the rain maybe 10 minutes after Lily and Dawson stumbled into the clearing. Reyes was with them, moving fast at the front, and the look on her face when her light found the 2 recruits. One upright, soaked and shaking, the other braced against her with an improvised splint, shifted through several things in quick succession before it settled. "Report," Reyes said, crouching immediately beside Dawson to check the ankle, hands quick and professional. Recruit Dawson went down crossing the drainage ditch near checkpoint 4, drill sergeant. Ankle injury, unable to bear weight. Radio window was compromised by weather. I made the call to navigate us to the rally point rather than hold position. Reyes glanced up at her, rain running off the brim of her patrol cap, and didn't say anything for a moment. Just looked. The same assessing look from the first day, except it landed differently now, like something in the calculation had actually changed. "You carried her the whole way?" "Most of it, drill sergeant." "On a bearing you plotted yourself in this?" "Yes, drill sergeant." Reyes stood, medics already moving in to take Dawson from Lily's shoulder, and for a moment it was just the 2 of them in the rain and the noise of the search element around them. Reyes didn't smile. It wasn't that kind of moment. But there was something steady in the way she looked at Lily now. Something that hadn't been there on the day Lily fell off the rope in front of the whole platoon. "Good," Reyes said. "Just that." But she said it like she meant every letter of it, and then turned to direct the medics, leaving Lily standing there in the downpour, soaked through and exhausted, and, for the first time since she'd stepped off that bus, entirely sure of something about herself. The medical tent smelled like antiseptic and wet canvas, and Lily sat on an overturned crate near the entrance while the medics finished wrapping Dawson's ankle. Confirmed sprain, bad but not broken. 6 weeks of modified duty and a set of crutches Dawson was already glaring at, like they'd personally wronged her. "You don't have to wait around," Dawson said, not unkindly, when she noticed Lily still there. "I know. Then why are you still here?" Lily thought about it honestly before answering. "Because I wanted to make sure you were actually okay, not just saying you were okay so people would stop fussing." Dawson huffed something that was almost a laugh, wincing as the medic tightened the wrap. "That's annoyingly perceptive." She was quiet a moment, watching her own ankle instead of Lily's face, which made what she said next easier for both of them. "I misjudged you. Back at the start. I decided what kind of soldier you were before you'd had a chance to be one, and that wasn't fair. And it wasn't smart either, because apparently the person I wrote off is the reason I'm not still sitting in a ditch." "I misjudged myself worse than you did," Lily said. "I'd already decided I was the recruit who falls off the rope. It took getting lost in the rain with you to figure out that wasn't the only true thing about me." Dawson looked up at that, something unguarded crossing her face for just a second. "For what it's worth, and I don't say this to people, you did good out there. Not good for someone who struggles, just good." "Thank you," Lily said, and let herself actually take it in instead of deflecting it, which was its own small victory nobody but her would ever notice. Reyes found her 20 minutes later, outside the tent, away from the noise of the rest of the search element breaking down equipment in the drizzle. She didn't waste time on preamble. "I'm not going to tell you that was inspiring," Reyes said. "I don't do that, and you don't need it. What I'll tell you instead is what you actually did right, because that's more useful to you." She counted it off, unhurried, like she'd already thought it through on the walk over. "You kept your head when the plan fell apart. You made a decision instead of freezing, and you made it fast enough to matter, but not so fast you skipped the thinking. You trusted your own navigation under pressure, which is harder than trusting it on a dry gravel track in daylight, and you kept your partner talking and stable the entire time, instead of just hauling her along and hoping. That's not luck. That's competence. I want you to actually hear that, because I don't think you've been hearing it about yourself this whole cycle." Lily's throat tightened in a way she hadn't expected. "I didn't feel competent. I felt terrified the entire time." "Most competent people do. The first several times it counts," Reyes said. "That's not a contradiction. That's just what it actually looks like, underneath the parts people write stories about." The weeks that followed didn't turn Lily into the fastest runner in the platoon, or the strongest on the rope, which she eventually climbed in full, shaking arms and all, 3 weeks after her first failed attempt, to no fanfare beyond Torres's enthusiastic, slightly ridiculous applause from the ground. She didn't become someone unrecognizable from the woman who'd stepped off that bus. She became, more precisely, someone who finally knew what she was looking at when she looked at herself. Not the label other people had handed her for 21 years, and not some inflated version built out of one good night in the rain, either. Just an accurate one, tested and confirmed under conditions that didn't allow for guessing. On the final week of training, during a quiet moment before lights out, Torres asked her what she thought she'd actually learned, out of everything. Lily considered it seriously before answering, turning the compass she still carried out of habit over in her hand. "That I don't have to be the strongest person in the room to be someone worth counting on," she said. "I just have to keep going after the point where it would be easier to stop and trust myself enough to make the call when nobody else can make it for me." "That's a good answer," Torres said. "It's an earned one," Lily said. "Took me long enough." Outside, the platoon area had gone quiet under a clear night sky. No rain in the forecast, and for the first time since she'd arrived, Lily Parker slept without the old voice waiting for her in the dark. And so Lily Parker's story comes to an end, not with medals or fanfare, but with something quieter and more lasting. A young woman who finally knew her own worth. Thank you for watching until the very end. If this story moved you, don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. See you soon.